I was such a douchebag. I had some affected voice.
There's something about you that people love. What is that thing?
You really would have to ask that person and then ask the millions of other people that are just like, yeah, that guy's not for me.
The first line of your obituary, what's it gonna say?
I'm not answering that fucking question.
Hi, I'm Michael Sebastian, Editor-in-Chief of Esquire, and this is What I've Learned. Today I'm joined by an actor who's been working since the age of 10, an award-winning director, and now media mogul. He's also very, very funny. Please welcome Jason Bateman.
Hi.
Hey, how you doing?
You put in the applause right now, just under
Yeah,
this?
exactly, that's right, yeah. This is filmed before a live studio audience, actually. I should have mentioned
Welcome,
that.
everyone.
So I've got some questions to ask you here, but one thing that I just want to tell you as we start this is that you have the distinction of being a man who both my wife and my 10-year-old daughter have crushes on. Yeah, no, it's true. And
tell them hello and thank you for their incredible taste.
Yeah. Well, actually, I should say that my wife at least did have a crush on you because she watched Little House on the Prairie growing up. So James was like one of her first crushes.
Got it.
And now our 10-year-old daughter is watching it, and she also has a crush on James. So
Smash cut to Black Rabbit.
yeah, exactly. Okay, but where I want to start is that the New York Times once described you as quote unquote constitutionally mild. What do you think that means?
Constitutionally mild. It sounds like another one of their hilarious, obviously they have incredible journalists and their use of language is, that's what they do for a living. I got a terrible review from them on the pilot of Ozark. Mike Hale basically said that I was so boring to watch, it reminded him of the person that he buys a ticket from in the airport. You know, like that person that works at the counter. I thought that I laughed my ass off. I was just like, that's just like if I was a reviewer, I would love to be able to be that good at being specific. Constitutionally mild, I'm going to spin it to the positive and say that I have a calming effect over viewers, usually in the parts that I play. But by choice, I really like playing the part that is us.
Yeah.
You know, kind of, if you were in that situation, which character would you be? You'd probably be the constitutionally mild person, you know, the everyman that is experiencing all of this craziness. Maybe that's what they meant.
I mean, it's interesting that you go there immediately because you have been described, I feel like your wife in an interview described you as an everyman. People talk about how you're sort of like the ultimate straight man. Is that something, did you set out to be that character?
I mean, there's two reasons behind that. Number one, I do like playing the part that is sort of your proxy inside of something, the person who's ingesting all of this stuff, and the person that the camera cuts to show the reaction to it. How would you react to it? I like being that person. The other reason is that I kind of got a little cringed out from watching acting 15, 20 years ago. I started looking at people like, you know, with the lisp and the lazy eye and the accent and the limp, and it was seeing a lot of acting.
Yeah.
I really started looking for the characters that would lend themselves to a very naturalistic approach. I feel the opposite coming on a little bit more, like, because that's how I started. I really want to be a character actor. I feel like I might want to take on a little bit more in the other end next, but we'll see.
Well, in Black Rabbit, I mean, you don't play the everyman or the straight man.
That was the first time I'd really sort of changed my look a bit for something in a long time, and it was cool to look in the mirror right before I left my dressing room and go, oh, that's not who I thought I looked like right now. I look like that. Okay, that is actually doing a lot of acting for me.
Yeah.
And so now I can do some of my naturalistic stuff behind that, and I don't need to look like a guy who's an ex-drug addict and act like that. It just sort of seems like that.
You mentioned the hair and the beard and everything like that you had for Black Rabbit. How long were you growing your hair and your beard for that?
I mean, it's not too dissimilar from this ugliness today. I apologize. That was probably 9, 10, 11 months, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
I thought that I was going to cut it, you know, and shape it into something different on the day. but I got there and just said, no, he's probably a guy that wouldn't do anything to his hair
Right.
in over a year, or his face. He's just thinking about other things.
So you're not going method, in other words, for these roles?
Not yet.
Yeah, not yet.
Not
maybe,
yet.
Maybe in the future.
I got to find a dealer first.
Yeah. So you have two daughters, one of whom I believe just left for college, right?
Yeah.
How's that going?
Incredibly well. She's very, very into it. Fortunately, it's in town here, so we see her every once in a while, and we haven't, drowned in a puddle of tears that, we've left her in some foreign state and now are living without her. My 13-year-old, still very much at home. That's going to be tough when she goes. Hopefully she'll pick a school here in LA as well. But it's, I love how confident they both are. They're different every single year, as you know. And some years they're behaving in ways you're like, ew. And then other years they're behaving in ways like, oh boy, I hope they figure it out. And then in other years that they've got it all together. And it's just like this constantly. My college daughter is so confident, and she's just eating up everything about life and the college experience, and the future's so bright. And I remember feeling that when I was 18 too. I just love seeing that blind confidence of 18, and you think it's all just gonna be unicorns and rainbows forever. And then, she'll be a little bit humbled with the practicalities of life, and hopefully she'll come and seek our counsel for that.
What have you learned raising two daughters, though? Like, what are some of the things that you've learned about yourself from that?
I think any parent learns a deeper level of patience and compromise and understanding and empathy, deeper than you thought you might ever, or maybe at a time you didn't anticipate learning it. One of the early ones came in traffic. We're stop and go traffic on the Ventura Freeway, and you can't move, and it's hot, and the air conditioning's not working, and the infant in the back seat is screaming their head off, and you just can't negotiate with them. You just have to deal with it, like many things in life. And it's a great teacher of many things. That was one of them.
Yeah. So you were a child actor, and there's so many child actors that don't kind of make it out of that stage of their career. You did.
I still feel like I'm still trying to make sure I make it out.
Really?
Yeah, and I'm going to be 60 in 4 years. It's like, we don't change that much after we're 18, 19, 20. I mean, I still feel like I'm there. It's just my skin crepes a little bit now. Like that's the only difference. There's a healthy portion to that, the humility of that, the humanness of it. That you're never done trying to get done what you want to do, because as you start to approach some pre-established goal, you start setting the next one as you see that attaining this one might be possible. I think you hope to be the kind of person that won't sort of rest on the accomplishment of that and be content with the status quo, but instead use the energy and confidence and happiness of attaining that goal or getting close to it to fuel the moxie to set a higher one. There's always this healthy feeling of short of accomplishment that I enjoy.
You've given a lot of interviews over the 40-some years that you've been in the spotlight, but there's one in particular that you gave in 1987 while you were promoting Teen Wolf 2.
Oh boy.
You're talking to Jane Pauley.
Oh buddy, I just saw this. It came up on my stuff, and I watched this interview for about 90 seconds. And I had to turn it off.
The hardest work, I think, for me at least, is after you leave the studio. You've got to, if you're not in a good mood, you've got to be in a good mood for your public.
I was such a douchebag. I mean, I had some affected voice.
I was wondering about that voice, actually.
I think it's because I'm all banged up from the night before. But there's also just such a self-satisfaction, and I think I'm talking about how many things I turned down to do Teen Wolf 2. Hey guy, no one's buying that. And anyway, Not a lot of people have interviews of themselves like almost in every year of their
Yeah.
life since they were 10. There's so many phases that you're just not proud of, and that I get to look back at some of those and sort of appreciate that hopefully an interview like this it goes down a little bit more easy.
It's a wildly unique experience, though, to
Oh,
have
yeah,
to have
very
that.
humbling.
Like you're like one of a handful of people that has had this experience before. What does that teach you? Like, what do you take away from that?
Your opinion of what reality is can only be as accurate as your ability to be honest with yourself. You know, like I thought I was fantastic, but I clearly was telling myself a lot of things that just weren't that accurate. Or I thought people were buying something that a more sophisticated eye, the
Yeah.
one I have at 56, and of which there were many 56-year-olds on that set that day, were probably looking at me going, "Oh, buddy, take it easy. You got a lot to learn, and no one is buying your bullshit." They were kind enough not to say it at the time. I wish they had. I probably would have dropped it a little bit earlier, but it wasn't until I was kind of in my mid-20s that I started to accept some of the humbling, honest truths about behavior and how I come across and what's really going on, and really being confident with being honest and being human, you know?
Yeah, I mean, but does that kind of fuck you up, though?
You know, first of all, starting at the age of 10, I was teaching myself how to be a professional liar, convince people that I was something other than what I was thinking inside.
Yeah.
You know, that's our
Yeah.
job,
Yeah.
pretending to be other people. So I thought that people would buy this role that I was doing on Today's Show, which is, super confident and like, there's no problems in the world, I'm the man.
Yeah.
Like, it's just, I was playing a part. And so I started to stop acting so much in my real life
Yeah.
in my mid-20s. It took certain events to happen where I accepted the humblingness of being just who we are,
Yeah.
How
did you feel, though, in your, I guess it would have been in your 20s, in the 90s, before, Arrested Development comes along, and, you're not landing the roles that you would necessarily be known for now? I mean,
Yeah.
was there a moment of moments of panic or despair, that sort of thing?
It was horrible. My 20s were very confusing and challenging. There was therapy, there was, seeking advice, there was a lot of self-doubt that was happening at the same time I was trying to catch up for all of the time that I was working and not playing. So I was doing a lot of playing too, which, all those worries go away at night, but they come back, the next day.
Even more so.
Exactly. Yeah. And so there was a learning curve with that as well. And fortunately, it wasn't really more than that decade. The 20s were a lot. And then in my early 30s, I, stopped drinking, married my girlfriend, who's still my wife, and got Arrested Development. And it was all kind of right in that 12, 24 months.
I mean, that's a huge moment. Your early 30s, you land Arrested Development, you give up drinking, you get married. I mean, like what do you take away from that? What's the lesson there?
There always was a plan. The three things I always said I wanted to do when I was a kid, that I wanted to get done as an adult, was to be a father, a husband, and direct a movie. If I wanted to do those three things, I can't be doing this handful of things when I'm an adult. So when would be the time to get these things done? Well, probably when it's somewhat palatable, tolerable, acceptable to be doing them. Your teens and your 20s. So I was really getting a lot of that stuff out of my system, knowing that at 30 is probably about the time you got to get your shit together and start to try to execute the plan. So I was very conscious at 30. I mean, I also knew, like, somebody told me that your lungs stop reproducing new cells after 30, so I stopped smoking too. Like, now's the time to do it. Did you get this out of your system? Because I didn't want to be 56 and think, God, I've never really been hungover. I've never really done this, that, that's, I know people that have midlife crisis because they just didn't release the valve back when they should have, I'm sure you know some of those people too. So I'm glad I got it out.
So there's something about you that people love. What is that thing? What is that thing that people love so much?
know,
like,
dude.
what do you think it is?
You really would have to ask that person, and then ask the millions of other people that are just like, yeah, that guy's not for me. I do a public job, so I am asking for people to like me, to tolerate what I'm selling, whether it be playing a character or doing stuff like this where I can't hide behind a character, or it's not a writer's fault that you don't like that character, like this is just me. So, I am a people pleaser. I do care about what people think about me, for sure. I read all the reviews. I don't really read comments because that's a whole different thing, but I'm doing these projects for public consumption. So it matters to me what the public thinks about them. It matters to me what critics think about them. So I'm factoring all that in, but like for all of us, what's most important is that the weather inside is 72 and breezy, and that takes a lot of work to stay happy, to stay clear, and to be proud of yourself. Because you can't hide that. You can try to drink through it, but as you said, you're sober in the morning. And you got to live in those hours too. So I do try to keep my room clean and do the kinds of things that won't chase me down the street during the day.
You have incredible comedic timing. Seth Gordon, the director of Horrible Bosses, called it the classic Bateman timing. What is that? Describe that to me.
I don't know. There are obviously many that do have that, and I don't have it all the time. I think when you're in the shower and you've got the soap going and you're doing your loop, or even when you come out, the towel, you have a pattern that gets everything dry. If you ever start to think about, or brushing your teeth, if you ever start thinking about what you lose your place. So if I think about what that is, I'm off. And sometimes I've thought about it, in stuff, and it's not great. So I recognize that I need to be in a place of relaxation where I'm not being too contrived about it all, and trying to just be in the scene and let it happen. My mother is British, and I was in a house that had a very dry sense of humor. And so I think that's where it kind of got started, where she never felt the need to laugh off something dry and sarcastic she said. There was no winking with her, which to me was hilarious. Like Jeffrey Tambor did that on Arrested Development. He was setting a tone for the show comedically, like, oh, there's not going to be any winking on this show. It's going to be fucking serious. And if any of these characters knew that anyone was laughing at them, they'd be deeply offended and might get violent. So to me, that was like, oh, great. This is the comedy I grew up with. This is the comedy I've wanted to do, but really wasn't able to do fully in all the sitcom work that I had done prior to that, multi-camera work where there's a studio audience where you hear them laughing. And so tonally, there's a little bit more of a participation with the audience and the actors, so it's a bit more of a performative experience as opposed to an acting experience, if that makes any sense.
No, it does. And by the way, the story about your mom being British, I feel like it unlocks a lot of what your sense of humor is.
Yeah.
It's so dry that it actually can seem almost cruel at times, I feel like. And yet you pull it off, though. I mean,
well, yeah, I do play asshole well, I think, and I apologize for that, but I am thankfully aware of it such that I do look for moments where I can flash the character being less sure of himself. So I try to work in a level of dumbness into somebody who's cocksure, so that there's a blend in there that makes it a little bit more palatable.
Does that carry over into your personal life, though? Like, are you...
Yeah, notwithstanding what I've said so far in the interview, I do, there aren't a lot of things I know a lot about, but the few things I do know a lot about, I will dig in at times when I'm working with someone and say, well, but wait, I really think I have the right answer about this, and so I'll be confident about certain things, but I do try to balance that out by when I am wrong, I will admit it and be very self-effacing and make fun of myself all day.
Yeah.
And I'll also be very aware of, if I'm working with an alpha that can't do any time being a beta, otherwise it's not going to go well, I will take the beta role all day to make that relationship work. Or even if they're not an alpha, or it's just, I just feel, even in a scene, if I feel like one character is kind of taking a lane that I thought I was going to take, you don't want a redundancy there. I'll move my character over into this lane so that there's the proper, spectrum color-wise in there. That there's a little bit of overlap, but you do. On SmartLess, for example, I'm often playing the dummy on that because Will or Sean are playing the person that really knows what the fuck they're talking about with this, and you can tell they're not going to move off of it. It's like, all right, well, we're not going to have a fight here, and so I'll just play dumb. It's just people skills. It's nothing, you got to go to school for.
In Black Rabbit, there's so many good moments, but actually my favorite Jason Bateman moment, or Vince moment, is the two debt collectors come into the kitchen at the Black Rabbit, and it's just you. One of them says something like the cheap the cheap pay, and you can't help, like the character can't help himself by saying, cheap pay twice.
The cheap pay for it. Twice. Huh? Cheap pay twice. I think it is.
And a great example of kind of what we were talking about, like, imagine just seeing that written in the script. You would read it as like, oh, he's being a dick. He's correcting him twice. What's that? Cheap pay twice, I think it is. I've said it like a dick in other films, but this guy's got a pair of scissors in his hands, and so you got to kind of soften it a little bit by pretending to kind of not really know if this is the right answer. But you correct me if I'm wrong, but it's twice, isn't it? And I think I even looked to the other guy like, right? Like, so, I know how to pretend to not know the right answer to make sure people don't get offended. I don't know.
It's just such a great moment of humor in a very kind of like dark, what looked like it was going to become a very dark scene, essentially. You know?
That was later.
Yeah, that was later, yeah. Do you think Hollywood is a meritocracy?
Some of it is, for sure. I don't want to be super pessimistic about that, but I will say there's a good and a bad that half of the industry is not a meritocracy. The bad, obviously, is that if you're the best at your job, you're not guaranteed employment like you would if you were, a 300 hitter in basebal. You'll play for 20 years. But if you're a 300 hitter as an actor, it's like, who says you got a hit on the last job? That didn't work. That last job didn't work for me. I didn't like that film. It's all sort of subjective. The good of it is that there's nothing predictable about our business. You never really know if you're gonna. I don't know if that's what we were talking about earlier. At 56, I still feel like I'm trying to not be, a child actor failure because I don't know if I'm gonna be working next year. Where's the wood? People ask me, I want my kid to go into the business, what do you recommend? And I don't recommend kids starting in it for two reasons. Number one, what we were saying earlier about you kind of teach yourself schizophrenia at an age when you should be allowing for all the clues and signals of who you are to come in. You're trying to figure out who you are at that age, not trying to develop believable other versions of yourself. That's kind of a very complicated thing to ask a kid to accomplish. The other thing is that you could be spending all of those years training for an occupation, an industry that is a meritocracy, where you can come out of college credentialed and say, based on this diploma, I've got a base salary, I've got some job security that I can rely on, I feel like I can ask my girlfriend to marry me coming out of college, I can provide, blah, blah, blah. You don't have that ever in this business.
Jerry Seinfeld tells a story to an up-and-coming comedian who's like, should I stick with this? And he tells a story about Glenn Miller's band flying into somewhere in Minnesota where it's snowing and cold and they have to walk from the airport to wherever their gig is or something like that. And they come upon a house where it's like, it looks warm and cozy inside. There's like a family in there. And they walk up to the window and they look at it. And one of the musicians says, I mean, wow, can you believe this? And the other one says, I know, how do people live like that? I feel like this is the trade-off with being in Hollywood, though.
Sure, to each their own. But I happen to be somebody that really loves that. I love a fireplace. I love nesting. I love being with my family. Boredom is sort of the door behind which relaxation lives, I think. My mom was a flight attendant for Pan Am, so she was flying internationally half the month, whole childhood. She was only there 2 weeks of every month, and Christmas sometimes would be on the 15th or the 2nd of January, whatever, depending on whether she was in town. And so we never really had Sunday dinners. And you know, my dad was a freelance writer, director, producer, so he would either be on location or maybe downstairs in the basement writing a script or something. So we were kind of latchkey kids, and my parents were our managers, you know, so there was sort of a peer relationship with our parents as opposed to that deferential kind of parents are the North Star. So I look for routine. I look for something that is calm because of all of the unpredictability of this business. Some people thrive on that. I prefer the balance of it. I'm this close to being crazy, like all of us, but I'm also this far over into sanity, you know, and I'm really proud of that because it's a daily job, I think, for all of us, you know, and there's been a lot of things in my life that can get me confused, just like a lot of things in everyone else's life. And the way in which you are honest with yourself and process these things and talk to people, whether it be a partner, a family member, a therapist, a friend, whatever it is, or yourself, the better off you are, and you can take on more and maybe have a more dynamic life.
That's a really beautiful answer right there.
I've been working on it. You know. I knew this interview was coming.
So Black Rabbit is about two brothers. You have a famous sister, Justine, and I'm curious, what is your relationship like with her right now?
We have lunch coming up next week. Great. We respect one another. We don't see each other a ton, mostly because it's kind of the way we were brought up. As we are now adult children and adult siblings, there isn't the typical sort of like, well, we see each other every Thanksgiving or every Christmas, and our kids are cousins. There isn't that in a great way. And there's a way in which we live that is non-traditional, and it's very consistent with the way that we were brought up. We allow each other to be a different person than maybe the last time I saw you, which could have been a year ago or a week ago. That's sort of a contract you have with people that are your very close friends. You know, you allow them to be, to morph and see the effects of what's going on in their life, you know, manifest in their current personality and their current way in which they live. And so it's a really healthy relationship that we've worked on. I'm really proud of us for, you know, being at the spot that we are.
You've been married to the same woman, Amanda, for 20 plus years, is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. Jason, what's the secret?
I married a friend as opposed to a girlfriend.
Okay.
That was a big one for me because I'm sure, like you, the girlfriends that you had before this current marriage you're in didn't last. You know, you break up with girlfriends. I found that I didn't break up with friends. And so what were those relationships? What was keeping me with my friends? What was that dynamic? What did I like about them? What did they like about me? Who was I when I was with them? And so since I only wanted to get married once, I thought, find someone I'm sexually attracted to that's also a friend. Yeah. Amanda, I knew was that for many years before she agreed to go out with me, and really before I really deserved to go out with her. I was still working out a bunch of other crap, and she sensed that. And once I got all that crap out of me, she said yes, and we haven't looked back.
What's the difference between love and sex?
Love is something that you feel and share with someone else. Sex is something you do with someone else, sometimes with that person, you know? And I mean, like, I'm sure you've had sex with people that you didn't love. So sex is an activity, I guess. Maybe the more apt sort of yin-yang thing is, what's the difference between sex and making love? What's the difference between fucking and making love, maybe?
Sure,
I don't
yeah,
know. I
I guess.
just don't know if sex and love are even in the same bin.
Your introspection really shone through with
Okay.
your
This-
answer to that,
I
because
gave
most
my
people
answer.
answer that question and they're like, it's like a one-liner or something like that. You
Yeah.
like really thought about that, you know?
Right. Well, I mean, they're different. You know,
Yeah.
they can coexist.
Yeah.
But definitely different. Both incredible.
Both incredible.
I recommend them both. If you've got free time this afternoon.
You've expressed interests before in hosting a TV show. You've said this before in an interview. But now you're hosting something that's arguably bigger than a TV show. Is hosting a TV show still an ambition for you?
Yeah, for a bunch of different reasons I won't bore you with, but one of the reasons I wanted to be a talk show host is to talk to interesting people and ask them questions, you know, and I'm getting to do that for an hour. It's such a gift. I'm so grateful that we've got the audience that lets us continue to do this, and all we're doing, all it feels like we're doing is bullshitting like this. Those two guys are two of my best friends, if not my best friends, and they're two of the funniest people I've ever met with. And so that's enormously helpful to the cocktail.
Yeah. Talk to me about what happens before and after with your two co-hosts. You guys start recording.
I'm at my house, they're at their houses.
Yeah.
I'm in my pajamas 9 out of 10 times.
Yeah.
I go to this one room that's set up in the house that's got a shitty table and a shitty chair and a microphone from Amazon that screws into the table that squeaks, and I open up the laptop 60 seconds before we're set to go and click join Zoom like everyone does. The moment that we come up on the screen, they're recording. So there's no prep involved. Like, okay, so let's start the little pre-chat, you know, let's talk about this. What the listener hears is exactly our experience as well. Nothing different.
You've been doing this for 5 years. You've interviewed tons of people, including 3 presidents at once, right?
Yeah.
What have you learned from, I mean, what are some of your takeaways from this? Not from like being the host of this, but from talking to all these people.
The big one is that, you know, they being these incredibly talented, accomplished, you know, superstars, they're exactly like us, the listener. They are nervous to do the show, 100% of them, you know. We're nervous doing it as the hosts. It's weird. Everybody is human. Everybody's self-conscious. Everybody's wondering if they sound like an idiot. Everybody kind of hopes that they're funny. That's really the cool takeaway that the 3 of us bring from it, and hopefully the listener does as well, is that what we usually end up asking them is, take us from where you were, which is kind of where we all are as question askers and the listeners. How did you get to where you are now?
Right,
you know, take us through that process. How could we possibly do that? What was the step-by-step of that? And so it becomes hopefully a bit tangible to the listener about, well, you kind of put one foot in front of this foot, and opportunity knocks here. Do you have the balls to grab that and see if you can do that? And then confidence lives on the backside of having accomplished that, and then that confidence runs you towards the next, and it's like, oh, so it is possible maybe for me too. And that's kind of an uplifting thing to finish your listen with, you know, that it just becomes tangible.
Was there a guest where they appeared on screen and you like instantly felt nervous?
Tom York and Johnny Greenwood from Radiohead, they were the big white whale for me. And when they said yes, I couldn't stop thinking about it until the day we recorded. Once they revealed their camera and there their faces were, now I got to start asking questions, and that was tough for me because I just think they're it.
Do you remember being on Johnny Carson when you were 15?
A lot,
Yeah, I'm
yeah.
sure. Yeah. Okay, so Johnny Carson asked you a question. Said, if you could be reincarnated as an animal, what would it be? Do you
I say
remember
a
your
bird.
answer?
I
You
said a bird, right?
Would you change that now?
No.
Still a bird.
No, I think it was the one thing I got right at that age. Yeah, I mean, let's think about it. A bird is never in traffic. A bird can go to, I think I said this it can go to any sporting event they want and have the best seat.
You said the Olympics, which was really funny.
Yeah, but I think the Olympics, it was 84, so
Yeah,
I was 15.
yeah.
The Olympics were in LA that year. You could sit on the field of any game. You could sit on the mound at the World Series.
How you feeling about the Dodgers this year?
Well, I'm sure this is going to air after they've gone through this postseason, but we are currently 2 games up on the Phillies in the division series, and it's nerve-wracking, but I'm pretty confident. I think we're going to win again, the World Series, so we'll be back-to-back champions. I think we're going to get a 3rd one next year.
Yeah, okay.
And then I think we're going to break the record with a 4th right after that.
That's all on the record. If that happens, that's going to be incredible.
I'm calling it right now.
Yeah, but you're also a Jets fan, is that right?
No. I mean, sure, if they're sending tickets, I'm happy to put on the hat. You know, I'm a whore. I like the sporting events. I do like the Jets. I like the Knicks. I like the Rangers. But I'm in LA. I like the Dodgers. I like the Kings. You know, we didn't have a football team for a long time, so I'm a bit of a whore when it comes to football teams because I had a bit of a gambling problem with football for a while there. So I started to just kind of like fall in love with whoever had the best spread. I'm most passionate about baseball and specifically the Dodgers.
All right, last question. The first line of your obituary, what's it going to say?
Oh boy. I don't know, man. I'm not answering that fucking question. Dead today is Jason Bateman.
What I'm trying to get at here is like, what are you going to be known for?
I really, truly hope people will remember me, and this is probably people in my personal life, and not necessarily, you know, people who only see me on the other side of the screen, but people that I work with and people that I love and live with. Hopefully they enjoyed themselves around me, whether we're hanging out or I'm working for them or they're working for me or we're working together. You know, like, it just takes a little bit more effort to be the best version of yourself. And I try to get that done each day. It makes me feel better about myself, and hopefully it makes everyone else feel a little bit better, the lives that I'm affecting. So hopefully that's the takeaway.
Well, I enjoyed myself.
Good.
So,
Thank
you know,
I
mission
enjoyed
accomplished
myself.
there.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming. Thank you, Jason Bateman, for joining us for What I've Learned. Check out Esquire, where he's on the cover. He's on the cover of Esquire, so go check it out.
Wait to see the pictures.
Yeah, oh good, yeah.
I photograph very differently.
Do you really?
Oh,
yeah.
it's not great.
Can we actually maybe rethink the cover thing? Is
Yeah.
that, is that possible?
Keep your knees bent on
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
Yep.
thanks.